Now it is my absolute pleasure to be welcoming back for Oasis the absolutely fantastic Carrah Q. She's talked to, give it up. She's talked to us about Hinduism, she's talked to us about Islam, she's a student of religion, lipstick aficionado, yogi. The list goes on and on of her innumerable talents. Today she's talking about something near and dear to all of us, which is the spectrum of secularism?
Spectrum of humanism.
Spectrum of humanism. So without further ado, Carrah Q, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Before I get started, I wanted to tell you, James Ritter sent me this message. If you could let the audience know today that I will be at the gym, the View Community Center, August 5th, between 2 and 4. It's only $8. I'm teaching meditation. Meditation is my passion. I love it. I could do it every single day. 8 hours a day is my full-time job. And Oasis, James is kind of trying to get us into that state of health as well in the mental mind. So I'll be teaching there August 5th, 2 to 4, $8. Sign up early. So I really would love to see you there. This talk kind of comes out of my interaction with all of you. I have a tremendous love for this community, and I feel tremendously loved. And it's odd because there's also this strange gray area, and I'll tell you what that's about. Like I look at your Facebook posts, and I read them, and I follow up with all of you, and I see what's going on, and then there'll be a post like, I'm having a really bad day, I'm very sad, or I had a panic attack today, or I'm feeling depressed today, or I just can't make it today, and I don't know what to do, but I wanted to reach out to somebody. So, right, I step into motion. This is what I do, right? So I get on the comments and I start to type and I say something like, well, I'm going to put you at the top of my prayer list, and I'm going to pray for you, I'm going to light a candle, and I'm going to hold you right here, and I'm going to think good thoughts for you, and I'm going to send it out into the ether and hope that everything transforms to you and changes for you. Just as I'm about to hit the little reply button on that or enter, I think, wait a second, this is Oasis. I can't do that. Hold on a second. I have to respect people's boundaries. This is not a place to say that. So then I'm like, okay, delete, 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 delete. I'll be thinking of you. And now maybe for you that's all good, and that's okay, and you take that sincerely, and that's a really wonderful thing. But for me, it's like the laziest cop-out I could give. It's like, I didn't do my work. I didn't do the biggest effort that I could for you. And yet, if you had said to me, I'll be thinking of you, I would take that, and it would be sincere, and I would hold it, and it would be great. So, what can I do for you that will also fulfill in me what I need to do for humanity? Which is to pray, which is to hold, which is to be of space, which is to be there for you on a level. And so I don't know. I'm a part of the spectrum. I am spiritual. I've been that way since I was 4. I'm not going to stop. I have tried to be an atheist. Trust me, I've tried. It doesn't work out so well, because then I see the sunset and I'm like, oh, it's, yeah. So, where are we? And is Oasis ready to start welcoming more spiritual people? Because they're coming. We're kind of done with the religion thing. We got it. We're not into it anymore. But we are definitely into community, and we're definitely into people that understand that humanity is the pinnacle. And we're ready to be here. But can we be here? I don't know. Do we start a group for spiritual Oasis people? I don't know. I don't know. So let's just talk about it. So this particular part of my journey, and I've got about 19 different journeys, started in 2002 when I was accepted to Union Theological Seminary in New York City. It was a complete dream come true. This was one of the best seminaries in the United States. It was the most politically minded. It was the most liberal. Every great liberal 20th century theologian studied there, and all the great liberal theologies came out of there. Gay theology, Native American theology, Asian theology, LGBTQ theology, Black theology, womanist theology, feminist theology, eco-theology. I was there, and I don't know what I was going to come up with. I was going to be the best theologian of the 21st century. I was so ready to be there. I worked really hard. I got a 4.0 in my undergraduate, and I sat there in my dorm, and I thought, awesome. I made it to a really old school that's going to help me catapult somewhere into my crazy world that I could make sense of. And during orientation, I don't know how many of you have been to seminary, but really you just talk about Jesus a lot, and you talk about your beliefs a lot, and it's a lot of Jesus, 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 and this is what I believe, and you kind of do it every half hour when you're meeting people. You have to have a statement of faith. And for me, it's kind of strange because my faith, or whatever I call it, my relationship to the source, has always been very fluid. So it could change from day to day. This was extremely frustrating for people. Like, how could you possibly write down something and publish it and then change? So, that's patriarchal thinking, by the way. So, orientation comes around, and we went the whole day saying all this kind of stuff, and that was great, and that was exciting. And then we get to the nighttime, and literally the head of the committee of orientation comes up to me at the seminary pub, and Union does have a seminary pub. And he extends his hand, and he says to me, "I think you're full of shit, Carrah, but I still like you." And I thought that was kind of strange. I mean, like, I identified as a Buddhist Christian. This was not weird to me. I'd read The Jew and the Lotus. This was a book. This was a thing. It was not something that was unusual. Combining is something Christianity had done. Like, where is this guy coming from? And I realized he had this idea that his singularity had a supremacy over my blending. That there was a supremacy to his tradition because it was one, because it was old, because it came from this long line of linear thought, which if he had really studied, it actually didn't, but he thought it did. And so he felt that his truth was better than mine. And I was hurt by it. I thought it was kind of ignorant for such a liberal seminary. So then next week, we had luncheon with the president of Union Theological Seminary. It was all very formal. There were servers like in his office and everything. We met in small groups, so he got to meet every one of the new students. And he talked about his faith, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. And we kind of went on around the table like we did. And I said I was a Buddhist Christian, and again it was like, oh, that's like the weirdest thing. And I just didn't understand how weird this could be. I was already weird. To me, this wasn't the weird part of my weirdness. So the president said that he had been studying Hinduism. We had a Swami coming to visit Union, and it was going to be great. And he picked up all these books, and he began to research. And I thought, oh, yes, we can talk to each other about this. So at the end of the luncheon, I went up and personally introduced myself, and I said, you know, I love Hinduism. I've been reading and studying about it it was just 2 years at that time. And I thought, wow, what a great opportunity for us to connect. I would love to have lunch with you. I'd love to talk with you about it. And I'm pretty sure you might incorporate some stuff about Hinduism in your life, because it really works. I mean, this stuff is like trying to even us all out and calm us down. It's awesome. And he said, oh, make no mistake. I am a Christian through and through. I am not willy-nilly. And, you know, I'd had enough therapy at this time, like, don't take things personally, somebody's coming from their history, it's not talking to you, blah, blah, blah. But, like, his 6'4" frame suddenly became like Wilt Chamberlain looking over me like willy-nilly was definitely about me. That I had somehow picked this up, this idea, this blending out of nowhere, as if some girl from Tucson, Arizona had any right to develop her own faith. So I was hurt by that too. And to make an extremely long story short, I dropped out of seminary. I was done with the eye rolling and the laughing and the constant belittlement of my faith because it wasn't singular. Thought that was kind of just really strange. I'm like, what version of Christianity are you studying? The one where it like plops down from the sky and that's how it ended up? The one where God's a Christian? Like, that doesn't make any sense. So after seminary, I moved to Kansas City. I sat on the couch and binge watched probably Twin Peaks or something. And I knew that I needed a major life review. I knew I needed to figure out, okay, well, we sat around tables all day talking about what we believed, and it seemed that something I said sparked people off in some way. So what did I believe? What was it about this blending that was working for me? How did it all fit together? So I knew as a child I was very spiritual. You know, other kids were asked, you know, what are you going to be when you grow up? And they're like, oh, I'm a teacher, I'm a nurse, I'm a firefighter. I'm like, well, I just saw the movie Jesus Christ Superstar, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to marry Jesus. He was really hot. He was totally perfect. He sang really well. And he made me dance. So that was it for me, you know. I was with Jesus, and I talked to Jesus all day long, and we would just would go to the bus stop together and play around, and it was fun. But as a 6-year-old, I really kind of got that, he died. And he died a really long time ago, so there was really no chance of us getting together. And believe it or not, this was a deep existential crisis for me as a 6-year-old. You can ask my parents. I mean, it was really difficult to know that I was not really going to ever be with Jesus. And so that, I think, really triggered this spiritual identity for me, that it wasn't about a body, it wasn't about this thing that's earth thing. It was something up there, something around here, something in here that was unseeable yet totally palpable. And so I lived my life that way. And then I got to be a senior in high school in Tucson, and we went to the Buddhist Center as part of a field trip. We were studying Hermann Hesse's Siddhartha, and we meditated. And when I meditated, I was like, oh, what's going on here? There's something really deep in here, something that's like this really filled up empty space. Something dense, and yet, I don't know, I could push through it and bring something back. And it made me feel whole. And it didn't make me question myself anymore. And so at that point, I'm like, I'm going that direction. I'm going to look for that. So Buddhism and Christianity. I will always participate in any religious ceremony I'm invited to. I will always find the sacred in the religions that exist. I will always believe people when they tell me their beliefs. I will always hold space for them and consider it sacred. I have no problem with this. No matter how much knowledge I accumulate, it does not diminish my awe. And I'm okay with that. I love learning about religion, but I don't like believing in it. I know too much, I see too much. I can't possibly hook, line, and sinker take it all in. So as I've studied for the last 17 years, here's what I've kind of figured out about religion. I think religion as a whole, again I'm being general, is trying to answer 3 key questions in our life. Where did I come from? Where am I going? That's question 1. Question 2, why do I feel bad about myself? What is it that I encounter in my life that makes me feel fractured? In what way do I not feel good enough or adequate enough? Something's happened here. There's been a wound. It's unavoidable. It's the human experience. That's question number 2. Question number 3. What can I do to mend that feeling? What can I do to become whole? Or basically, what can I do to feel good? Those are the 3 questions. So if I took the framework and the tenets and the structure of the religion and I just put that aside and I was left with thought systems that were dealing with these 3 questions and how to wrestle with them, if I pulled away from the skeleton itself, literally and figuratively, and focused on the philosophy, what would I have? More importantly, if I used a metaphorical rather than a literal interpretation, how could I open up the meaning of these philosophies so that they might be relevant to my life today? The literal translation degrades the whole purpose of the teaching. Literal translations create a power dynamic in which the believer must suspend reality and give in to a lie. It robs the soul of imagination and individuation, and it takes away from the human their greatest power, which is their consciousness. The metaphor is always more powerful and universal. It's eternal, with prismatic sides and whole spectrums of colors. It's an endless tool of teaching and learning. It is not something you stake your soul on. And most importantly of all, where do these philosophies come up short? What did they lack? What were their limitations and obvious contextual issues that could not possibly serve a single mother in the 21st century in America? Where were the modern day revelations and sacred texts that could speak to me? How could I have a spiritual life and take from religions of the world and do my own thing at the same time, which was my right as a human being? So I was looking at a life of spirituality. I was looking at the questions and not the religion. I could use ancient wisdom, but I could also forge new territory. I had to do what was real, and I had to do what was in the moment. And I knew that that could change at any time, and that's okay. It's called cyclical thinking, or matrilineal matriarchal. Spiritual, meaning a fluid daily understanding of a connection to an external source of energy that is in relationship to me as a part of me and a mover of me. A way of seeing life as a part of a whole system, integrated, sometimes magical, and always whole. Engaging in the mystery, not always trying to define or get to an end. For me, sometimes this takes the form of prayer. Usually it's me breathing in long breaths, hoping just to make it through the day. Always meditating, teaching meditation. Sometimes it's a trip to a Hindu temple. Sometimes it's an Easter vigil. I know, I actually do it. Sometimes you'll find me at a church or the Buddhist center. Sometimes you'll find me at a stoplight, just sending it all out. I'm at home in all of these places, but I cannot just take one, and that is my right. Especially as a woman, I can't take on a system that was developed without the understanding of the feminine realm. I have every right to pick and choose because these whole systems are anything but when it comes to the reality of day-to-day living in the modern world. The universality of Christ is kind of a joke when you're going through postpartum depression. All of those verses of the sleepless nights of Jesus waking up with baby really came in handy. Where are the stories of birth and breastfeeding and menopause? Where's the verse about leaving him when he hits you? Where's the parable about the woman who pointed out her rapist on the Sabbath? Where is the book about the woman who fell in love with another woman and they lived happily ever together without a man at all? So you can't tell me that religions we have today are enough. I need more. And my cultivation of spiritual confidence, I know what I'm looking for. I know the tools to find it, and I won't stop till I get there. And sometimes I get there and I stay there for a while, and then I need something else. And that is my right. In losing religion, I felt a slight dip in my ability to find the sacred. Until one day on my front porch, I saw a tree. And there was no mistaking it. It was winking at me. And I realized that in worshiping the earth, I need look no further than what I see around me every single day. Moving to Kansas City, I experienced the seasons for the first time. New smells, new ways of rain, thunder that rolled on forever, changes in the clouds, angles of the sun, daylight savings time. We don't have that in Arizona. This is the Earth's way of communicating. It is science, and that's fine. But something deeper is happening for me. And I'm in communication with it as well. I have to realize that the earth is in fact the only reason, and the very reason for my existence. Without the earth, I would die. And so I give gratitude daily to it. My spirituality is my essence, but the earth has my utter soul. Something is in me, something surrounds me, and something pushes and pulls and guides me. That's my spirituality. I listen. When I place my hand on the heart of a client as I'm teaching them meditation and I feel them and hear them, take a real good breath for the first time, and I do it with them, there is a sense of connection like no other. And I cry almost every single time. And I don't care if that's professional or not. It's something that is necessary in the world we live in today. There is a powerful energy source in the human being. And to be frank, my deepest sense of spirituality comes from hanging out with humans. Humanism. This is my definition. I purposely did not look it up. I don't need some system to define it for me. I've got it right here. The understanding that the human is a source of great power, inborn with the ability to heal themselves, transform their lives, create effective change and good for all of the other fellow human beings and planet Earth through love. A sense of awe and oneness in one's own being when making intentional, heartfelt contact with other beings. That, for me, is humanism. My spirituality follows philosophies sometimes attached to religions that promote personal empowerment and healing. Worship calms me, meditation keeps me sane, ritual provides a structure that for whatever reason satisfies me. But listening to a human being's story is something that is so incredibly powerful for me. For some reason, I give off a pheromone that says, please tell me your deepest, darkest secret that you've never told anyone else. I have no idea what it is about my presence that makes people do this, but I have heard some pretty incredible stories. And I have listened with deep empathy. And I have listened in connection with my own pain. And I have held hands, I have held heads, I have held bodies. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. We enter a thin space together where the senses are awakened and everything is clear. And there is a truth that is undeniable, that without words, we can connect. In all of these times, I am aware of how holy it is to talk to each other. I am also aware that no religion of the past has the monopoly on what is sacred in the present. Don't let anyone tell you that miracles only happened back then, and don't let anyone tell you that a miracle is some insane defying of science that is completely impossible. Miracles happen when we choose to claw our way out of damaging thinking and commit to a healing process. A miracle is the transformation of the human spirit. This is recovering from trauma. This is the scarring process of the open wounds of life. Becoming whole. More importantly, the decision to become whole is a miracle. I do not believe in the miracle stories of the Bible, but I do believe in their meaning. I do not believe in the divinity of Jesus. I happen to think he was a human. And whether he existed or not is not the point, and I don't really care either way. I do think it's extremely damaging, however, to make him divine. To make this teacher so unobtainable as to only think that gods have the answers and only sons of them can do the right thing is to reinforce our bad feelings of inadequacy about ourselves, which we would have anyway without any religion. Religion did not invent our lack of self-worth, it just capitalized on it and made it a major vein of its own belief by continually providing solutions to heal and yet keeping the wound open at the same time, thus perpetuating a codependent relationship. And we'll take your money too. Religion takes all the power of the human and ascribes it to God. Religion as a power structure fears the power of the human. It wants you to externalize, to leave you weak, insecure, and beholden to its peripatetic solutions, giving you just enough to satiate from time to time, but hungry enough to keep coming back. And we'll take your money too. The system I accept is the human. All of its glorious, imperfect, and magical mess. I accept myself, non-egoically. We have within us power that religions want to steal. We are the ones who are the healers, the sages, and the leaders. Imagine what we can do if we recognize the power within us. Love is our superpower. It is the kryptonite to any oppressive system. It is our ruby slippers. It has always been with us, right there in front of us, ready to take action. Love is the one thing you can do to an individual, on an individual basis, that absolutely has the potential to affect the whole. When you love someone in a moment, they are less apt to turn around and then be an asshole. If someone is loved by just one person, I guarantee you they have a fighting chance. The more we believe in our power, the more the systems will fracture. The more we listen to each other and use our great hammer of compassion and leveler of reason and wisdom, the more the need to export our power will become senseless. We can build a great oneness with the very things we have within us. Our ability to halt our own self-destruction collectively and personally may actually be our greatest gift. Humanity is the most real church out there, and while I'm not sure I would worship it, I am in awe of it each day, and I get great spiritual moments looking into someone's eyes and hearing their deepest desires for their life. I can't wait to see what happens when I believe in them, and I believe in their ability and imagination. I believe in you. I believe in Oasis. I believe in this community. and I certainly can't wait to see what happens. I love my community, and I really hope I have a place at the table. I think I know I do. But just be prepared that there's more of us coming, and we wish you no harm, and we don't want to change your minds. We agree with almost everything you say. But for some of us, we just need that little moment for ourselves because we feel it, and it doesn't make us crazy. I don't care if I'm weird. Thank you for allowing me to speak and express this. And I promise I will not hit send if I accidentally say I'll be praying for you. Thank you so much. Namaste.
We have got some time for questions. If you've got questions, raise your hand. Please ask a question. I'd like to remind people.
I don't know if this is my water, but I'm drinking it.
Anyone have a question for Carrah?
I'm interested in how you could limit your definition of yourself as Christian, Buddhist, rather than just everything.
I eventually ended up at everything. I was trying, I thought, well, Buddhism was great, but then I read something else and I'm like, wow, that's really great too. So I did a patchwork for a while, and then I realized I didn't need the patchwork anymore. The patchwork was actually keeping me from the true expression, the real expansion of the humanity and the true spirituality. So that's my definition for now. Yeah.
You mentioned that in your view, religion fulfills 3 basic human needs. Do you feel that it would be possible to, in the future, invent maybe some kind of a synthetic religion that accomplishes all that, but without dogma and mythology and guilt?
I don't know that there's an organic religion. I think all religions are synthetic. They're an expression of human organization. They're not the actual thing that happened. It's our ability to create and weave stories that end up in power structures. So I think those are synthetic anyway. They're just frameworks. They're not the essence of who we are. So I don't know. I think those questions are what make us human. And I don't know that you could ever find a universal answer, which is what makes it so fantastic. It's the search. That's the journey, not the answer. Does that make sense? I always feel like I never get to answer your questions because you ask such good ones. Did I answer it? See, I always get that from you. Like, I don't know, what's that?
Sorry, you caught me in the middle of a stretch. I actually studied Buddhism for 3 years, and I came out of a Catholic background. And I knew several people who identified as some sort of Christian Buddhist hybrid. Did the people who had a practically allergic reaction to your self-identification as Christian Buddhist have a concept of what Buddhism actually is?
No.
Or were they thinking that it was some sort of contradictory? Can you tell me what you thought their understanding of it was? Because I'm just boggling at this.
Yeah, so we had to take a class on a religion other than Christianity, but the only one that was offered was Buddhism, right? So everyone in the class had come from a primarily Protestant background. A little dirty secret in American seminaries is that Catholic women end up in seminaries because Catholic women can't be priests. So we had also a lot of female Catholics. And they were laughing when they would introduce themselves because they were so embarrassed and uncomfortable in being in this classroom. And so it was clear that they had never been introduced to anything other than their own religion. I had never met more sheltered liberals in my life. I didn't know it was possible. I thought liberals were supposed to be worldly, like we knew there was something else out there, right? And I don't know, it was weird. They were embarrassed, they were uncomfortable, they would laugh out loud. They were taught somewhere in their Christianity that they were superior, and that the singularity, the vow, the linear, the one was much more important than being what they would consider diffuse a little bit, into a different place. And I don't think that they had ever had sort of an existential crisis that would, and that's my judgment, would have led them to seek something else. See, when you experience trauma, you become fractured. And so these fractures have to find a way to get answered or held in some way. And so you're definitely going to try and reach out of your own sort of raising that you've had, and you'll find it out there. So when I went out and found Buddhism, it was definitely to heal something. And so I just wondered about them. If they had ever had such a deep crisis, where would they go if they couldn't find it? So maybe they did find it all in one thing. I did not. I couldn't. None. They didn't know that Buddhism, I don't think they even knew that Buddha came from India. Yeah. This is why I always say religious education, high school level, it's got to happen. Yeah. Who else? Anyone else?
Yes. Let me preface this by saying I would welcome you into my life and my home. Most of my closest friends are theists, spiritual, or something or other. Anyway, and I'm new to Oasis and don't speak for Oasis, but my impression of Oasis is that the intention is for it to be a secular community. And so I'm just wondering, given that the definition of secular is non-religious, non-spiritual, why would you be thinking this was a home, given your worldview?
Because I'm not religious, and I'm skeptical of religion, and
Non-spiritual.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm spiritual. I'm not religious.
No, yeah, but the definition of secular is non-spiritual.
Not right. Correct. But I find great comfort in humans, and I find great comfort in love, and open-mindedness, and care for other people. And you find that more here. Have you ever heard this phrase that people from Oasis are better Christians than Christians?
I haven't heard the phrase. But
I don't know if I made it up or not, but it's definitely something that like floats out there. I've picked it up on the ethers. You know what I mean? Like it's definitely out there. You know, the work that Oasis does, the view that they have to care for the poor, to care for the least of these. I mean, we're living the book of Matthew, whether we like it or not. You know, it's a crazy thing to be in, right? That we have to come here to live out love. It's just so. I don't have an answer. All I know is that somebody like me feels way more at home here than I would in a church. Thank you. Yes. So yeah, there's no answer. There's no answer yet. This is why I gave the talk. I'm just saying, prepare. We're coming. We're not coming to take you over. But it's definitely part of the spectrum, and it's there, and it's been there for a millennia, you know.
Hello. So I'm very new to Oasis. This is my first time, and I actually came to hear you speak because
thank you.
the term humanism is really kind of interesting to me. So very new to this community, and everybody seems incredible and welcoming and very kind and better Christians than the Christians I grew up with.
Yes.
So yeah, I grew up Southern Baptist, converted to Catholicism, liked the structure, and then lived with nuns for 2 years. And they make vows to the structure, but they don't actually really ultimately believe it. They came to a place where Christianity and Catholicism was just the anchor to that bigger picture, and that's kind of where I'm at. So that's how I ended up here, is because I'm learning about these different religions. Well, I didn't think to learn about people that aren't involved at all in those religions. And we all believe the same thing. That's kind of what I come to, or like you said, those 3 points. So love. So then at the same time, I'm here, and I like this community better than my Catholic community, so I'll probably keep coming. But I feel very much like I abandoned them in a way. It's this big institution, and everybody's just kind of lost. And I feel pretty bad about that, because I'm one of those people that kind of like to stay on the inside and teach through action and teach through love. And I believe that love is the biggest thing, most important thing, regardless of what you believe or don't believe. So how do I resolve that with myself? I mean, I know it's not my responsibility, but
Love is the greatest threat to any system. Yeah. Because it takes away the structure, the power structure, and brings it back to the person. Mm-hmm. So if you want to transform Catholicism, just keep loving.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I see these women religious, and that's what they do. They don't even speak that they don't really believe in heaven or hell, those things anymore. They just live it out. You wouldn't even know they're highly educated people. And so I just live it out, but if I'm not there,
Who you are
And
there.
they
But we're all
don't
part of the
even-
same thing.
A lot of these people wouldn't even venture outside of that into something like this.
As a woman, keep speaking. As a human, keep loving. It doesn't matter where you are. It will transform itself. Trust me, if we just keep on it.
Transform itself.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
I lied. We have one more quick question.
One more last question. Hi.
Hi.
I really enjoyed your talk today, and I could relate to that quite a bit because I have always felt spiritual, but and used to be religious. But then my husband, when I met him, he'd grown up in a cult, and I really got my fill to here with religion, and learned to hate it. And so I would have people come up to me and say things like, I feel, I pray all the time, but I have this hollow hole, and I feel like I have an empty spot, and I don't know what that is. But being a clinical social worker, I and because I knew these people, I knew it was an identity. They didn't know who they were. They had just been told who they were, and they believed that that's who they were, but they never had the chance for existentialism or to learn how to be who they were. So when I left religion, and as a therapist, I learned how to fill those holes myself. And then coming to Oasis, this just fits like a glove. It fits like a glove because I don't need religion, but it is love. And when Christians say God is love, that's all it is God is love. But I feel that, and maybe this is what you feel as well, because you call yourself a humanist, and I'm very much a humanist too. But I feel like the spirituality that I have is a spirituality that I send out to other humans, and the spirituality that I feel is also the spirituality that other humans send back to me.
I relate.
Does that fit?
I relate. And I have no name for it. It just happens.
Yes, it does.
And when I try to deny it, I feel like I'm lying.
Yeah, and it's not concrete. It's
Well, you've never
very,
been
very,
to,
very
like-
static. It moves constantly,
Yes.
depending upon whose spirit that you meet.
Yes.
And the spirit is that person. It's like their aura. It's like seeing that.
Right. I mean, if you're front row at a U2 concert, you can't deny that something is seriously happening. Like, Bono and I are
it's emotions.
really in this thing, and things are happening.
Yeah,
Things
and
are
it's
happening.
emotions,
It's a heightened state of reality.
And it's emotional, and those emotions going out from different people, I think, is what I feel. Because I can walk in a room where there's a really terrible person, and the back of my hair just stands up on end. Or I can walk into a room of loving people and feel peace. And so that to me is my spirituality. And I think that's what I hear you saying.
There you go. Thank you.
No, this is really good. So when Carrah told me that she wanted, my name's Helen Austin, I serve as the executive director of Kansas City Oasis, that she wanted to talk about this particular thing. So people, I guess, sorry, I'm wearing a political shirt. I shouldn't be. But I think it's a conversation that all of us need to start having. One, I could define myself as spiritual. We're doing a lot of semantics here, so how we define certain words that are loaded words for a lot of us, it gets tricky, so usually I avoid it. But I find awe and wonder in the gray area of life. This is how I, Helen, view the world. I find also a lot of science things to be incredibly fascinating, and it gives me awe and wonder and adds meaning to my life. My experience with other human beings and relationships and friendships give me so much awe and wonder. So we're kind of talking about that meaning piece, and spiritualism is loaded. But we're all on this journey of like, how do we use these words? And we're in a culture where, it's heavily religious, and, what is spiritualism? So and I think you did a fabulous job of it. I had to step out for my kiddo and needed some help. But it's a time for us to all start thinking, what does that mean for Oasis? Because Carrah and everyone I hear speaking, and people talk to me, but like they're kind of hesitant. They're like, So I feel like I'm spiritual, you know, am I going to fit here? I'm like, yes. So let's start talking about what does that look like without, you know, but we resonate on 5 values, you know. We do think reason is really important. We all, you know, agree that science, you know, is the way to knowing, you know, what is, you know, reality and truth in life. So we're not going to compromise our values, but how do we gather around those 5 values? Those are our filters, and then we can all find community and connection with each other based on just that. So that's all I wanted to interject. But I think it's just beautiful the way Carrah presents it, and I can't imagine this community without you for a second. So you're definitely at your home. Anyways, I'll stop.